Hello heroes, 4Kate here with a rare bit of history from the live-action X-Men movies, the story of how and why Hugh Jackman was cast as Wolverine. Back in 2003, I attended a screening of X2 at the Arclight cinema that had a Q&A with X-Men writer David Hayter. Of course, I was excited to meet the voice of Solid Snake, but the coolest thing that he talked about was giving us a little bit more detail on the process of Hugh Jackman being cast as Wolverine, and most interestingly, on why the original actor cast, Scottish actor Dougray Scott, was not in the role. It's long been known that Mission Impossible 2, in which Dougray Scott played the villain, had many production delays and was going over schedule, threatening Scott's participation in the first X-Men movie. On October 7th, 1999, Variety reported on the production overruns for Mission Impossible 2 and how Fox was getting antsy about whether they were going to have their star in time and put a deadline down, after which they said they would have to recast. And in fact, they were actually already working behind the scenes on a backup plan. But as far as the X-Men go, Dougray Scott's injury was much more serious than reported as well. However, it still technically wasn't the injury that stopped him from being on the X-Men, from being Wolverine. He technically was healed in time for the production. David Hayter explains in a little bit more detail at the Arclight Cinema from back in 2003. And he threw in an extra little tidbit about heavy metal rock star Glenn Danzig coming in to meet because he was petitioning for the role.
Dougray Scott was our initial person cast. That was an extremely difficult role to cast, and like everybody wanted to do it, and everybody was like, "Oh, Wolverine, that's really cool." And what's his name? Danzig came in. Yeah, you know who Danzig is. Glenn Danzig is a thrash metal singer and has lived his whole life after Wolverine, patterned his whole life after. He's got a big Wolverine tattoo, and he's all fuzzy and small and angry, and we didn't cast him, but it was funny that he came in. So Dougray Scott was the villain in Mission Impossible 2. He's got long, dark hair, just a good-looking fella, and a good actor. And we're really looking forward to it. We're like, this is our guy. But they were shooting Mission Impossible 2 in Australia as we were shooting X-Men. And then it was going over and over and over. And now we're starting to shoot. And Wolverine isn't coming. And Tom Cruise keeps calling Brian and saying, look, just hang in there. We're going to have him done very soon. You know, you're going to love Dougray and it's going to be great or whatever. And he's like, okay, well, I kind of need my star of my movie. And we weren't hearing anything. And we thought, you know, it's just something wrong, and so we sent a wardrobe person to Australia to fit him for his wardrobe, and he had been in a motorcycle accident during the shooting of the climax of Mission Impossible 2, and he had gotten injured pretty badly and was down to like 150 pounds, and and these clothes were just hanging off, and we were like, oh my God, that's supposed to be the toughest guy in the world, and we were totally bummed. And so we looked back at tapes of people that had auditioned, whatever. And Hugh had auditioned, and we liked him, but he was too tall and he was too handsome. I mean, he was very handsome, and just too pretty. And but Lauren Schuler Donner really pushed for him and said, you really got to take a look at this guy again. And he was doing, he hadn't done much of anything. It was really, for me and Hugh, it was our first big foray, so it was kind of cool. But he was doing Oklahoma on stage in London. So we flew him out to do a screen test 3 weeks into shooting the movie. We were just shooting everything without Wolverine in it, which is basically nothing. We were shooting the Senate scene. And so at that building, which is like a civic building in Toronto, we set up an alternate camera crew in the back, and Hugh came in, and Anna Paquin came in to do the scene in the truck, which is in...
That's on the DVD.
Yeah, that's one of the good things about X-Men 1.5. You'll see that his screen test.
Right.
And he came in I mean, excuse me. He came in, and just imagine how freaky this is. He's been flown from London to Toronto to sit down for a 10-minute audition, which will change his life. Now, we're 3 weeks into shooting, and we're desperate. And he came in, and you can see it. It's in the thing. The first time he turned towards that camera, Brian and I are sitting 8 feet away in front of the monitors, and we just looked at each other and went, yeah, he's our guy. We're still concerned because he was still good looking, and you'll see in the tape. And it wasn't quite Wolverine, but it was very striking, and he just had this cool presence.
So there you have it. It really wasn't all of Mission Impossible 2's many production delays that caused Dougray Scott to be unable to fulfill his role as Wolverine, opening it up for Hugh Jackman. And it technically wasn't the injury as well. He had just been emaciated and lost his superhero physique during the inactivity from the injury. And I actually also thought it was kind of cool that they, or at least to hear Hayter say that they turned Hugh Jackman down because he was too good looking. I know it sounds crazy after we've now seen how great Hugh Jackman was in the role, but I think it was cool to see that their hearts were in the right places, that they weren't just trying to find the perfect, movie star quality next sensation, which is exactly what I would expect from Fox normally. So that was a pleasant surprise, and just a cool little bit of X-Men live-action movie history. Thanks so much for joining us. Thanks for watching. Please give us a like and subscribe, and we'll see you here next time on Hero Journalism.